Hello, World Wide Web. Welcome back to another wonderful commentary. If you're new here, sit back, relax, and grab a snack, cause we about to chat. You ever watch something so dumb, so painfully stupid, that it makes you question how we even got here? Like, how did society go from splitting the atom to people eating Tide Pods and believing that Wi-Fi causes cancer? Somewhere along the way, common sense flatlined. And now, we're stuck in a world where the most obvious truths are somehow controversial. So today, let's talk about why everything feels so dang stupid. Common sense used to be, well, common. It was the unspoken rulebook of life. Basic logic, critical thinking, and a little sprinkle of self-awareness. But now, it's like society got a factory reset and forgot how to function. People can't tell the difference between facts and feelings. Basic responsibilities are treated like oppression, and doing the bare minimum is considered grind set behavior. And the worst part, this isn't just about social media dumbness. This is leaking into our laws, our workplaces, and our education system. People in charge are making decisions that make absolutely no sense, and we're expected to just nod along like NPCs. And with that, I'd like to point out that the same people in favor of Donald Trump and cutting costs with Doge are the same ones pushing for a $4 trillion increase in the national debt limit. Look, I'm all for cutting government waste, but when the people who are supposedly cutting the waste are also the ones pushing for a higher spending limit, I'm just saying I find that a tiny bit contradictory, but I digress. You ever notice how nothing can be what it is anymore? Everything is up for debate. Simple facts. Stuff that anyone with a functioning brain should understand. And now, those things are controversial opinions. We see it everywhere. Like, instead of telling people to eat better and exercise, we're celebrating obesity and calling it body positivity. And hold on. Nobody's saying that people who struggle with weight don't deserve respect. Life is hard, and weight gain can happen for a million different reasons. It could be stress, genetics, medical conditions, mental health struggles. You never know. If someone is overweight, that doesn't mean that they deserve to be shamed, mocked, or treated like less of a person. But what we shouldn't do is pretend that obesity is something to be celebrated. There's a difference between having empathy and enabling self-destruction. If you saw a friend drinking themselves into liver failure, would you encourage them to keep going? If someone you love was smoking 2 packs a day, would you tell them that it's their truth and just let it happen? No, because real love isn't about blind validation. It's about wanting the best for people even when the truth is hard to hear. Encouraging obesity under the banner of body positivity is not love. It's setting people up for shorter, harder lives. The reality is, excess weight makes life more difficult. It increases the risk of diabetes, heart disease, and joint problems. It makes basic activities like walking, sleeping, and even just existing harder. It often comes with an unhealthy relationship with food, which affects both physical and mental well-being. That's not fat shaming. It's just a reality. And the crazy part? Discouraging obesity isn't about making people feel bad. It's about wanting them to live longer, healthier, happier lives. It's about helping them escape from the suffering that comes with an unhealthy body, not trapping them in one with empty affirmations. So yes, be kind, be understanding, but don't let kindness turn into complacency. Real self-love isn't pretending everything is fine when it's not. It's making the hard choices that lead to a better life. Now on to the next. We also see controversial opinions appear in basic responsibilities, like showing up to work on time. You know what they call it? Capitalist oppression. And they say that paying your bills is a rigged system. Somehow, we've reached a point where doing the bare minimum, showing up on time, paying your bills, and taking care of yourself is considered oppression. People act like having responsibilities is some kind of grand injustice, as if the universe probably cursed them with the burden of adulthood. And look, I get it. Working a 9 to 5 isn't for everyone. Not everybody wants to grind their life away in a job that they hate, and that's fair. You don't have to follow the conventional path of making money through a corporate job. And honestly, if you can find another way to sustain yourself, more power to you. But here's the thing, no matter what path you choose, you will always have responsibilities. If you start your own business, guess what? You still have to be disciplined enough to manage your time, deal with clients, and pay your bills. If you choose an unconventional lifestyle like homesteading, freelancing, or traveling, you still need structure and discipline to make it sustainable. If you want a family, you can't just opt out of responsibility. You have to provide, you have to protect, and you have to show up, physically, emotionally, and financially. This whole idea that the responsibilities are some kind of rigged system is just an excuse to avoid personal accountability. Because yeah, life isn't always fair. The system isn't perfect. But pretending that structure, discipline, and effort are some kind of oppressive scam, that's how you set yourself up for failure. Learning how to show up on time, manage your money, and handle basic life tasks isn't about playing into capitalism. It's about building the skills you need to take care of yourself, and eventually, the people that you love. Because whether you want to admit it or not, nobody respects an adult who can't handle their own life. So if you've got another way to live, fine, do you. But no matter what path you take, don't expect life to reward laziness. Discipline isn't a trap, it's freedom. The more you master it, the more control you have in your own life. Now finally, we see controversial in one more place. In common knowledge. Apparently, men and women are the same, and crime isn't real if you redefine it. And somehow, words are now actual violence. Somewhere along the way, society decided that acknowledging differences between men and women was offensive. We went from recognizing that both sexes have unique strengths to pretending that we're completely interchangeable. But here's the thing, it's okay to be different. In fact, those differences are what allow us to complement each other and build stronger families, communities, and societies. Men and women are wired differently, both physically and mentally. And that's not a bad thing. It's just biology. Men tend to be more physically strong and built for endurance. That's why they have historically taken on more physically demanding roles, whether it's labor, protection, or competition. Women tend to excel in nurturing, emotional intelligence, and multitasking. That's why they have to be the backbone of families and communities, bringing people together in ways that men often don't. Even mentally, men and women process the world differently. Men lead toward logical problem solving, while women tend to prioritize social harmony and emotional connection. Both perspectives are valuable, and both are needed. The problem isn't that men and women are different. The problem is that modern society has convinced people that embracing those differences is bad. Instead of appreciating how we naturally complement one another, we're told that equality means being identical. But sameness and equality are not the same thing. When we embrace our natural strengths instead of fighting against them, we create more balanced relationships, workplaces, and communities. Strong men protect, provide, and lead. Strong women nurture, support, and guide. And when both sexes work together, instead of competing to prove that they're the same, everyone benefits. So no, men and women are not the same. And that's not just okay, it's essential for a functioning society. None of this means one gender is superior. It just means we're different. And pretending those differences don't exist doesn't make society more inclusive. It just makes it more delusional. Now what about crime? We've also hit a point where crime is being rebranded as economic struggle or social injustice. But people are robbing stores in broad daylight, and instead of stopping it, we're lowering penalties so that they can do it again. Schools don't want to punish bad behavior, so they just change the definitions of violence and misconduct. And cities are seeing spikes in crime. But instead of enforcing laws, leaders are saying things like, well, if they needed this stuff, is it really theft? This mindset isn't compassion. It's a recipe for chaos. If you remove consequences, criminals don't magically become better people. They just get bolder. And the ones who suffer the most are law-abiding citizens. Because when you stop punishing bad behavior, the only thing that increases is bad behavior. Then there's this idea that words are equivalent to physical violence. Apparently, if someone says something you don't like, it's the same thing as being physically attacked. And because of that, people demand censorship, safe spaces, and the banning of quote unquote harmful opinions. But let's get one thing straight: words are not violence. Someone insulting you online is not the same thing as getting punched in the face. A controversial opinion is not the same thing as physical harm. And just because something offends you, it doesn't mean that it endangers you. Offensive speech, controversial opinions, or just things that people don't want to hear are all protected under free speech. The whole point of free speech is that people are allowed to express themselves, even if it makes others uncomfortable. The second that we start treating words as actual violence, we open the door to shutting down any opinion that doesn't fit the mainstream narrative. And once free speech disappears, getting it back is nearly impossible. Wee woo, Big John interjection moment. I just want to point out to you guys that you need to wake up because the suppression of free speech is literally happening in Germany right now. And if you do not pay attention to these things as they are happening currently in the news, you're going to be completely oblivious when the privilege to have an opinion is all of a sudden stripped from you and you have no idea what hit you. So I'm just saying, keep your eyes open because this is literally happening in countries that claim to have an alliance with the United States of America. Just be aware that elected leaders of other countries are leaning a bit too much into extremism, and pray for these citizens while they get it resolved with their elected officials. Anyway, back to the commentary. But let's make one thing clear. Threats are not free speech. If somebody says, "I don't like you," that's free speech. But if somebody says, "I'm gonna find you and hurt you," that's a threat. If somebody criticizes a political figure, that's free speech. If somebody incites violence against a group, that's crossed the line. There's a huge difference between speech that offends you and speech that endangers you. The moment that somebody makes an explicit threat to harm another person, that's no longer just words, it's an action. That's where laws against threats, incitement, and harassment come into play. And honestly, that's a good thing, because free speech is about open discussion, not about giving people a pass to terrorize others. The problem is, instead of recognizing that line, people have started blurring it on purpose. They'll claim that a simple disagreement is harmful, or that a rude comment is violence, when in reality, it's just something they don't like. And when that happens, actual threats and genuine violence get lumped in with normal speech, making it harder to take real dangers seriously. At the end of the day, words can be harsh. They can be offensive. But unless they cross into real threats, they are not the same thing as actual violence. And if we don't hold that line, we're setting ourselves up for a world where nobody is allowed to say anything at all. The real danger here isn't offensive words. It's the mindset that people need to be protected from them. Because when society starts treating speech as violence, the next step is silencing anyone who challenges the mainstream narrative. And once free speech is gone, good luck ever getting it back. Now look, emotions matter, but we've reached a point where feelings trump facts. We're making decisions based on what makes people feel good instead of what actually works. You can see it in how people handle debates. Nobody argues with logic anymore. It's all about who can sound the most offended. If you disagree with someone, you're not just wrong, you're evil. If a rule makes you uncomfortable, it must be oppressive. And if a consequence hurts your feelings, you shouldn't have to face it. The worst part is, this mentality is spreading to everything. Workplaces, schools, even government policies. Nobody wants to say, "Hey, maybe your bad decisions are the problem." Instead, we have to pretend that the reality is the issue, not people's choices. And you know what fuels stupidity? Zero consequences. When people can act a fool with no repercussions, society gets dumber by the day. We're at a point where kids don't listen to teachers because they can't be disciplined. And employees suck at their jobs but still expect raises. And people make horrible life choices and demand that society fix their mess. Somewhere along the line, we stopped holding people accountable. Now, instead of learning from mistakes, people play the victim. Instead of adapting, they demand that the world change for them. And instead of using common sense, they rely on whatever nonsense gets the most likes online. At the end of the day, common sense isn't just dying, it's being actively murdered. And unless people start pushing back against the nonsense, we're going to end up in a world where up is down, right is wrong, and stupidity is the new standard. If this video hit home for you, then you'll definitely want to check out my commentary on the illusion of choice, because here's the scary part. Common sense isn't just dying by accident, it's being erased on purpose. Think about it. Why is society pushing extremes instead of logic? Why are people being fed dumbed-down narratives that don't hold up in reality? It's because when people stop using common sense, they stop thinking for themselves. They stop questioning why things are the way that they are. And then what happens? They become easier to control. That's why this entire commentary series exists, to break down the real issues that nobody wants to talk about, like why discipline is dying while mediocrity is being rewarded, and why accountability is vanishing and people are blaming everybody but themselves, and why society tells you to follow your feelings instead of using logic and reason. If you're tired of the nonsense, check out the full playlist that I have linked up at the top or at the end of the video. So what do you think? Have we officially crossed into idiocracy? Or is there still hope for people to start thinking again? Let me know in the comments. And if you've got a topic that you want me to cover, shoot me an email at bigjohn.submissions@yahoo.com and I'll cover it in a future video. Now go touch some grass and do something logical today. See you in the next one.